Oh my goodness, Angela, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast with us.
Oh, I'm so pleased to be here. I always enjoy talking with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're really glad you're here. For those that don't know you, maybe you'd like to tell, our audience a little bit about your history, your family, what's your story, and, what got you into encouraging other people to be organized.
Sure, yeah. So thank you again for having me on. I married my husband. I think we all live similar, like we've talked about this before, but we have kind of similar paths.
Yes, we do.
But I met my husband and we got married about 27 years ago. We were the original Pam and Jim of the office. We both worked in sales, if we're a paper company of all things, and that's how we met. But I was in marketing and sales for a while, and then I had both of my kids. I have a son who is now going to be 23 next in a couple weeks, and he just graduated from college. And then my daughter, she was born with Down syndrome almost 21 years ago, and that took me for a loop. That took both of us for a loop. It was an unexpected diagnosis. Obviously, we found out the day of her birth, and we really were uh, pretty overwhelmed. Like I really was not familiar with a lot of people with intellectual disabilities. I hadn't been around, I hadn't had the exposure and the experience to kind of know what was ahead. And so I had a lot of fear. We just had a lot of anxiety around that. But we ended up moving back to Texas a year after she was born to be closer to family. And that's where we've lived ever since. And so I have family here, and we decided to be close to them. But we also started to dive into advocating and being involved in the Down syndrome community here in Texas. And that really has kind of opened my eyes and really inspired me to, continue to work with other families of kids with special needs. I love volunteering at the hospital here, the Children's Hospital, where I get to meet with young families who have newly diagnosed little ones with Down syndrome. So I get to hold their little babies, which is so fun, and talk with them. And that's through the Down syndrome clinic there. And then about 3 years ago, I started organizing. I just have always been into organizing. That's just, it's a natural gift for me. And it wasn't until I was actually at a friend's house of all places, and I was like, I want to organize her pantry. And it wasn't even messy or anything. I just wanted to organize it rather than go to the beach. And I was like, wait a second, why do I want to do that? And so that got me kind of thinking about, well, maybe I'll just start organizing for some friends. And it just kind of took off from there. And then I had a chance to speak to the Down syndrome community here in Dallas about organizing. And it just blew me open about like the need for our community of adults who are caregiving and taking care of kids with special needs, that we have a lot of overwhelm. We have a lot of extra costs involved. We have a lot of extra stress, and that all can really impact the way that we organize or our ability to organize even. And so how can I help these families? And so that's what I started I started a podcast, and I really do try to focus on helping families of kids with special needs get organized. Those are my main clients. Yeah. So here
We
we are.
love. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. Yeah, we love that. Seriously, it is such a valuable skill and tool for our families to know some of these tips that you're going to be sharing that there is so much, annual meetings and paperwork that's due all the
Mhm.
time, right? And so there is just a lot of stress with that. And so your advice is so valuable for our
Well,
families
yeah,
for
and
sure.
and how much it takes down the anxiety. Like I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
just even setting up for this, it's like I'm trying to find something and where to go, and your anxiety starts really increasing. But to know where that is and to have plans on how to keep organized, really can help limit what's already a stressful life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is our fall series. And so, one of the things we're doing is just, prepping families for the kickoff to the fall because school has started, programs have started. There's so much to it. And so, I think we just want to start with the basic question of why be organized? What is it, you want to share with families about the keys to being organized and why they would want to be, especially families like ours that are raising children, teens, and adults with special needs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great question because I think some people don't, a lot of people honestly don't realize the impact that the clutter around us, or our maybe the way that we set up our home or the way we do our routines and our systems, how much that can impact our anxiety, our stress, and it can impact our kids too. So it is a known fact that clutter in our lives, like clutter around our spaces, can really have an effect on our. It can raise our cortisol levels when we walk into a home and it's our home and there's a lot of things around us. It can really impact that. It can create brain fog. So there are a lot of reasons just physically why it can be helpful for us to um, like have a more organized space. I think too, we as special needs parents, we have a lot of extra stress. I feel like at least my experience is that I kind of live in a low level of stress. I have that low level stressors all day long, every day, because I'm always worried about whatever it is that I'm doing, either with my child or worried about the future or things like that. We have all those kinds of stressors in our life. And organizing to me is a way to kind of help reduce some of that stress. They also say that the average American spends 55 minutes a day looking for items in their home.
Yeah.
That's
And
We can
we
attest to
as
that.
special needs, yes, exactly. We as special needs parents, we need those 55 minutes more than anybody else, I
Yes,
think.
we do.
We
love
need
Find
that.
My iPad, and find my
Exactly,
use
air
all the
tags,
time.
whatever it
Oh,
takes.
yes, definitely.
Yes, yes. So if we can set up our spaces and set up our homes and our routine so that we can find things that, again, reduces our stress, it reduces our anxiety, it helps with that overwhelm that we're feeling all the time, and it gives us time back, truly.
Yeah.
And then finally too, I have found that when we set up our spaces in a way that helps us and helps our kids, we are helping our kids and our young adults be more independent,
Yeah.
because if they can find their shoes every morning because they're in the same place every morning, you don't have to be going to look for them. They can do it themselves, right? And so it sets them up for better and greater independence. And so I think that's one of the biggest benefits, truly, um, to getting organized and to just having that sense of calm. And I probably should define what I mean by being organized. And that's not having the Instagram worthy space or the, completely perfectly, beautiful bins in the pantry and all of that labeled and everything. It's really, to me, is my home and my space set up so that it is not creating stress for me? Is it calming to me? Is it helping me do the things that I want to do or that I need to do with my kids? Is it helping me just have a better day, honestly, getting through the day without adding stress? And if you could say that about your home, then it's organized. Like that's what, to me, organization means. And so that's how I work with my clients, and that's how I try to help others, especially those of us who have kids with high needs, just set up their spaces and their routines so that it is no longer giving them extra stress throughout their day.
So good.
Yeah, it really
So
is.
good.
Well, and matching the idea of these kids, so many of them really need structure, and structure and organization go hand in hand. And
Right.
that actually was just a light bulb moment for me to see, oh yeah, those things really match, and not just make us more helpful as their parents, but that's how they're wired to need the structure, and organization and structure go hand in glove with each other. So that's great.
Yeah. And then creating that independence from it.
Hmm.
It's
Mhm.
such a good point.
Yeah, definitely. As we talk to try to help our parents get organized, do you kind of have a roadmap and what types of things you want them to make sure to include in the organization process?
Well, it definitely depends on the space, on the situation. It depends on our organization styles. We all have different organization styles. So some of us really like to be able to have a clear space that doesn't look cluttered when they walk into it. So they want things maybe behind cabinets or in drawers.
That's
Others,
that's me.
and that's okay. Like we just need to recognize that, right? Others, especially those who have high sensory needs or maybe are neurodivergent, they might need their things out in the open or in open bins or clear bins so that they can see what they have, because they tend to forget that they have them if they're behind cabinets or in drawers. And so, first of all, just recognizing what your organization style is and what your family members' organization styles are, that and then being able to communicate that is really, really kind of the first step. But the second step too, I always say is, well, there's two things, maybe so three steps. Is decluttering. And I know that that is some people hear that and they're like, oh, I don't want to get rid of my things, right? It's really hard. And we could talk for hours truly about decluttering, because there can be a lot of emotions attached to our things and a lot of emotions attached to the process of decluttering. However, I will tell you that the more that we can declutter our spaces of the things that don't serve us, the things that we don't love, the things that we don't use, and move that out, the more freedom, truly freedom, that we can have as parents and as kids. We need to realize that there are also practical reasons why we don't want to get rid of things. We spent money on it. We might need it someday, all of those things. There is a cost to keeping those items that you're not necessarily using. And the cost of that depends, but there is a price to having a clear and open space so that your kids can dance or you can have a dance party. There is a cost to maintaining and cleaning all of those items and storing all of those items. And so, we have to work on our mindset when it comes to that. But if we can work through that decluttering process and really try to remove the things that are no longer serving us, that is truly kind of the biggest thing that you can do. If you do nothing else but work on only having the things that you really truly need and love and want in your home, then you're already halfway there. And then the final thing is taking small steps.
Mm.
It really doesn't have to be, you don't have to hire an organizer to come over and spend a full day, going through all of your closets. You can, and that is a great way to do it. They can help you, but you can also just take baby steps and do just a tiny bit a day. And if you want to start, I know this one organizer, Cass, she's like called the clutter bug. I think she has a lot of YouTube videos, but she calls it trash bag therapy. And if you're listening to one of her podcasts or watch one of her videos, you just take a trash bag and you go around your house and you just find things that are trash. Like just get rid of the trash, like in your home. And that can maybe take 5 or 10 minutes. Or maybe you don't have trash. Maybe you go around and find 5 things that you no longer need or want, and you can donate, you can recycle, you can trash them if you need to. We have to consider our own mental health when it comes to this. I'm all for, saving the planet and recycling when we can, but sometimes we can't let our homes be the landfill. If we're just afraid for it to go into landfill, like then our home is just serving as the landfill, right? So, but I do believe that if we can just even take 5 minutes a day and just go around and be pulling out things that are no longer serving us, or take maybe one drawer and just go through one section of the drawer and take it very small, eventually you will start to build that muscle of that organizing muscle, and you will get better at it and stronger at it and start putting things into place. So those would be my 3 top things of kind of how to get started.
I love this idea of decluttering. Our daughter has trained us very well to be a declutterer, because she will take things off wherever they are and turn into projectiles. So we're constantly figuring out, oh, what clutter is around, what don't we want? And I mean, by nature, I probably would allow clutter to be many places. And she now it's the constant thought, what can she grab? What will cause that? And what, whatever is out can cause a mess, and that will take us time to do other stuff. So it's really, yeah, she's trained me more. My wife is much more naturally declutterable, or whatever we might call that. That there's a new word. But yeah, so she's trained me just by that. But the idea of what can happen, and cluttering does cause problems. That's
Mhm,
huge.
mhm.
Another kind of idea I think of organizing too is a lot of the paperwork involved in, raising a child with special needs, whether it be IEPs or medical records or so forth like that. What strategies do you have for parents to organize that type of material?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's like Pandora's box. It's so hard. I will admit it is so hard to address all the papers that we have. And I think it's especially hard this time frame that we're in because I feel like we're caught between needing to still hang on to the paper, the IEPs, obviously the wills, all of those, the guardianship papers, the medical papers, and then we have the digital that we're kind of world that we're moving into. So if it's almost like two sets of organizations that we have to work on, like
Yeah.
two sets of piles of papers that we have to work on. And so I get it. It's very, very hard. And I don't maybe we can all go digital. Hopefully we can all go digital at some point. My brain still goes to paper, and then we still have certain things that we have to have in paper, like court documents, things like that.
Right.
And so we have to consider how, first of all, how we think, like, do we need it on paper? Then, okay, we've got to keep it there. And if it's specifically paper, I would recommend a couple things. One, your very most important documents, they need to be protected in some sort of safe, or away from prying eyes, away from just water, fire, all of that, So get yourself, if you can, a safe that it can be stored in. I keep all of those documents in a binder, and then I have like the clear plastic sheets that I have our wills, I have power of attorney, all of those. I have, let's see, um, like our car titles and our birth certificates, those kinds of things in there. And I have insurance documents, like things that we really like. If there was a fire, I could go and grab it and take off with it, and I would be, have like the main things of what I need. For the other items, maybe your IEP documents that you don't necessarily have to have, protected like that, but you need access to them. Those I really would just try to corral them all together in one file, whether that is a binder, whether that is a notebook, but just trying to have whatever system works for you. There's lots of them, but think about how you would want to see them, how you would want to categorize them. How does your brain, like when you think, where would I first look for my daughter's IEP document? Like your first thought probably is where you want to put them and keep them all together. And the same for medical documents, medical records, we do need to hang on to. And unfortunately, so those get big. So having some sort of file box or something like that you can access. And then finally, I don't do as much digital organizing, but I will say thinking about how you name your files
Yes.
Hmm.
can really impact how easily you can find them later. And
Yes.
I've learned that the hard way.
Totally. Me too.
Yeah. So
We're
if
so
you're
alike.
organizing by date, and Eric, you probably know this, if you're organizing by date, always put the year first and then the month and then the day, so that you could access them. Having clear ways to name your files so that you can get access to them is really, really helpful.
And I might say something, the more detail you can do, even if it's a longer file name, computers have wonderful ways of searching, and if you start putting that stuff in, it will pull up all the files with those names. And so the more details you have, especially when you get anything you do, there's multiple duplicates, then you have the file name and then the dates. You can pull those things up rather quickly on a computer. It's much easier than a filing cabinet. Well, in my opinion, I guess that's how I'm wired, but um, yeah. So
Yeah.
good points.
That's such a good, yes. And that's really helpful, actually. I probably need to consider more of that, adding more detailed information to the title, just so that, because what does it matter? Like if you, as long as you can set your computer up so that you can see them and you can search for them,
Mhm.
then yeah, yeah. So I know, but it's a lot. It's a beast.
Is.
Mhm.
It
It's
is.
a
Well,
beast. Yeah.
and touching on that, I mean, that's something that keeps coming up is the overwhelm that happens for us,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? And for anyone really, but especially our families, because we are constrained to the amount of time we can spend on these kinds of things. One thing I love that you keep saying is do it in a way that works for you.
Mhm.
So figure out, how does your brain want to see it? Do you want to have it behind a cabinet door or do you not? Do you want to see the files, in order or not? That kind of thing. And so, but just kind of expanding on that thought. Why do you think it's so overwhelming for most of us? And why can't we just seem to get started? What's a good starting place? I love that
Mm.
you touched on that.
Yeah. Why it's so hard, I think. Uh I liken it to, organizing comes naturally to me, but other things don't. Like, like my nutrition and my health. I need a health coach for that. And
Yep.
so I have to rely on that. But I think like so we all have our own strengths. It might come naturally, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn and grow and become my own kind of, accountability partner for what I eat and what I put in my body. I think that one of the reasons it's so hard for some is that organizing, it feels overwhelming. You feel like you have to do it all at once, right? And we don't have the time as special needs parents to block out 4 or 5 hours or a day or whatever to, clean out a room. So that feels overwhelming. So then we want to shut the door and then
Yep.
we don't want to worry about it and then it builds and builds. The other reason is that it really can be well, it's a muscle that we have to work on.
Mhm.
And so we have to start small. We also can have trouble seeing the fruits of our labor
Yeah.
if it's done small in small increments, but they will come. But it's hard to see that sometimes if we have someone demanding dinner or bedtime or an IEP meeting, like we've got urgent things that are going on. So it's important but not necessarily urgent. So
Mhm.
those are all the reasons why it can be really really difficult. But one thing that actually my health coach taught me is to think about what my future self would want me doing right now versus my current self. And so what that looks like for in terms of organizing or setting up our day might mean that when I go to bed, I really just want to go upstairs, brush my teeth, and get into bed. But if I can, as we're going back to school, start setting up lunches in the evening time and making sure their backpacks are in the right place, or all of the do some of those morning things in the evening and set up your routine so that you are habitually doing some of those things. When you wake up, you are automatically further ahead. Your future self is now thanking you, thanking your past self
Gotcha.
for setting those things up. Yeah, for setting those things up. And it can be the same for setting up your space so that it is working for your routines. And just thinking about and going through, like back to school is a perfect time. A lot of people really want to get organized going back to school. And so I always do try to recommend that even a few weeks before going back to school, you might want to start, maybe having your kids go to bed a little bit earlier or waking up and doing a drive-by of the school, practicing that routine before it really has to come into play. Do we need to set up a command center in our house so that we have hooks that our kids can reach, that aren't way high up, that they can set their backpacks on, or their cubbies for their shoes, or maybe it's a basket. But thinking about how they come into the house and leave the house. What do you need in those places? I used to work with a designer, and she commented one time, "Well, I have this client that is just so focused on her laundry room, and I was like, well, yeah, I
Uh-huh.
spend a lot of time in my laundry room. And she was like, why the laundry room? And I'm like, oh my gosh, definitely the laundry room, the mud room, the entry, the way that you enter and leave your home. Those are really important spaces that a lot of times we don't think about, until we realize, oh gosh, we've got shoes all over the floor when you walk right in. It's a hazard, and you're stressed when you're coming in. You don't want to see that. Can you set a basket there so that your kids can put your shoes in there, and so that you can walk in, without that, so that's not the first thing that you see. So just just considering those little spaces, and trying to set that up so that your routine is as easy as possible.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm thankful for my wife on how many of those things she's put in our plan, and for me to be able to see the value of organization, in terms of, I mean, a special needs kid has a lot of different things in their backpack and in their
Yeah,
school routine to get out the door. So it is no simple, just put your shoes on and run. There's
right.
a lot of things going on. So the more organization is huge. I know for me and probably many of our listeners, the starting of this is overwhelming, and it's almost like, oh, well, I'm not organized. Why should I even try to start? So what do you think is like the starting point and something that's going to really help them not require a tremendous amount of time or effort, but be real fruitful in terms of getting them started in this process?
Yeah, I definitely think the trash bag therapy is always a good starting point. Like if you don't know where to start, and let's say you are a little overwhelmed with your home and the clutter in your home, just grab that trash bag honestly, and just and what 5 things, even if it's 5 things a day, in a month's time, you'd have what's 30 times 5? I can't do math on the fly. 150 items that you would have removed from your home, so like and that will create some space. And then you will start to see, oh, I like having this empty space over here because my kid now can play, with some of their toys. I
Yes.
know a lot of things too, when with our special needs kids, we tend to want to make sure they have everything they need, every tool, every toy that might help with their development. And just keeping in mind that having space and openness is also really, really a good thing for our kids. And that things can serve multi-purpose, it can have multiple purposes. So we don't necessarily need to buy one of everything. Um, so I would say, again, start with the trash bag, and then after that, if you're ready to really start kind of like trying to get your home organized, start with your entry point. I would really start with your entry point where you're walking in. Is it set up for how you leave? Do you have your keys and your purse, and your kids have their shoes? Do they have whatever it is that they need when they walk in and out of the house? And then move from there, but do it slowly. It doesn't have to be done overnight. Just take it slow. You can spend 10 minutes a day, and you could even set an alarm, honestly. Like for those of us with ADHD, it's like you don't think about it. I totally get it. I work with people with ADHD. And if you have to set an alarm so that, okay, it becomes part of your routine at night. Okay, I'm going to go through before I go to bed and upstairs and brush my teeth. I'm going to pick out 5 things that I want to get rid of. Um, so those would be kind of my things. But if all else fails too, I think having an accountability partner also can help. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a professional organizer. It can be a friend, it can be a spouse, it can be a sister that comes over or says, "Hey, I got rid of 5 things today. How about you?" Like someone that can just hold us accountable to, to our future goal in mind of getting organized.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. So like a challenge with someone that you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
I
Mhm.
love that. You know, then there's not just getting started, but then there's maintaining the organization, right?
I'm guilty.
So, what would you share with those of us that have a hard time maintaining it? I mean, it just doesn't come natural for all of us, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't come natural, and I think first of all, we need to understand and accept that organizing is not a one and done kind of thing. We all know that, right?
Mm.
But it can be hard, like, if you spend time, working on a space and then, 2 hours later, your kids have, come in and it looks like a hurricane came through. I get it. We I think our homes should be spaces that can feel lived in, right? We want them to play. We want to enjoy our homes, and that means we are going to use our homes. We are going to cook food in them, and we are going to move things around, and we're going to play with our toys and move them in here, and all of that is okay. So, letting go of that kind of perfection, image that we have in our head of what our homes should look like, the most important thing is, do we feel happy in our homes, and do we feel like we can get things done, and do we feel like we can move in a way that makes sense for us? So, so if you can, find first of all, try to find places for your things. Like, try to set up so that you have a place for your items. If you can do that, then when you are using the item, I always like to say, don't put it down, put it away. So
Mhm.
we try to remember, okay, I'm done with the scissors. I'm not going to leave them on the counter. I'm going to go put them back in the drawer where I found them, and encourage, like, if you have kids that will take you up on that, hey, don't put it down, put it away. A lot of times I will use that as a mantra. And I know that that doesn't work for everybody. So even if you can't do that, maybe having, say, every night before you go to bed or in the morning, you do a 5-minute sweep, and you just put away the toys in baskets, easy things that you can, throw things in so that it can feel maintained. It may be messy in the basket, but that's okay. You have space to move around.
Okay.
What's in there. You can go back in there. Your kids can go back in there and get their toys out. But even just having a 5-minute reset, at one point throughout the day can help you at least feel like you can, um, you know, try to maintain it, because I do know that it can be hard to maintain, so.
Mhm.
I love that too. Just like you said, creating the space because when you have that margin, that space in the home, your mind is less cluttered too, and
Right.
kids as well. And you're
Mhm,
creating opportunities, like you said, of spaces to play in and live life. And
mhm,
I just love the approach you bring to this of this is about living life. It's not
Mhm.
just
mhm.
about having this Pinterest perfect home.
Mm-mm.
It's about living the best life that your family can live and not feeling that excess stress that you don't
Right.
need to feel if you could take a few steps, at the beginning of the school year, set up your station, set up your command station. I love how you said that for coming and going so that you're not looking for keys, looking for shoes, etc. But yeah, I mean, Eric mentioned it. We travel light in this world because our daughter will make
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
And it's been such a good thing. It's been a gift. It's been a gift. Our kids are, teaching us every day, right?
Mhm.
Well, I
Yes,
know, like,
definitely.
psychology wise, it's kind of like understanding that organization actually makes you more efficient and takes your stress level down. I think there's so much of you have to coach yourself to it because, like I said, like me, it doesn't necessarily come natural. But what you just said is huge. Don't put it down, put it away. And I so often know myself, I just set something down, whether it's in my own home or in the classroom that I teach in. And then I realize, where did I set it down? And so if I can train my brain, like that's just one little nugget, but that's an incredibly powerful nugget. I know she said over the years, everything in its place and everything has a place type thing, that you start knowing where those things are, how much time that saves,
Mhm.
how much stress that saves. And I'm learning, it's still a work in progress, that maintaining the organization is always there, but recognizing that organization really does take your stress down, the cortisol levels and so forth. um is there anything else, maybe, I mean, that was a wonderful nugget, any other kind of nuggets, key phrases that can just stay in our head as we're
Mm.
Yeah.
organizing?
And especially again,
Hmm.
dealing with families that are raising kids,
And maybe
teenagers,
ADHD
adults.
themselves.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
We get
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Mhm.
great point, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely. I do every once in a while I come across some clients that it's almost like organizing, like, feels it makes them feel tied down, like, they want the freedom to they don't wanna spend ti their time organizing, they wanna go out and have fun and do all
Mhm.
these fun things, or they wanna be able to go and just, spend time with their kids, or, have a meal where they're not stressed, those kinds of things, and I think what I try to impress upon them is that organizing actually can bring them that kind of freedom. And so looking at it as maybe not necessarily chore, but something that will again give your future self that freedom that you can now go out to eat with your family because you have all of the things set up that you need to remember to take with you when you have to go when you go out to eat and you bring your child and they need certain things. Or it can really just make things a lot easier along the way, of getting out the door or planning the things that you want to plan. And so, looking at it like almost changing your mindset again towards that. Okay, I know that this is a chore, but how can I make it fun? Can I do a timer? Can I just do it for 20 minutes and then I'm done. I'm good for the day, and I don't have to worry about it. How can you kind of psych yourself out, so to speak, so that you get it done and then you do get to go enjoy whatever it is that you want to do or whatever you need to do.
yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
the reward is in the fact that you will feel less stress, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes,
you
right.
will have
Mhm.
less clutter and you will be able to have more freedom as a
Mhm.
family
Time,
in a yeah, exactly. And
inevitably.
in a situation where our families don't often just get that. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
such good suggestions and just wisdom that you're bringing to this topic. Seriously, Angela, it's so great. Every time we have a guest on, we love to ask this last question, which is, what would you like to share with our listeners to help bring hope for their road ahead?
I know you told me this earlier and I'm still struggling. I'm still like there's so many little things,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
After 21 years of taking care of my daughter, but I will say if you are in a season where you're really struggling, just hang in there. And because I do think that we move through those seasons a lot of times, and we can get to the other side, and there is growth that happens during those kinds of seasons. I once someone described. Uh, a situation I was going through as like a catapult where, when you're being pulled back, there's a lot of tension and anxiety and energy and frustration. But then once you are released, there's a lot of growth and forward motion. And so just hanging in there, I think, and trying to find some joy in the day to day too, I think honestly is what I've tried to work on the last few years of just trying to really take take some gratitude out of just the simpler things that we get to do in our life, and caring for my child is a joy a lot of times, and so I need to appreciate that. So but it's day by day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still working on it all. 21 years later. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, Angela, thank you so much for coming on. We know this is going to be a great kickstart for our families this fall as you're starting school, you're starting new programs, things like that. This is just such a valuable topic, and
Definitely.
be sure to check out the comment section, the show notes, because we've got all of the contact information for Angela. If you want to reach out, we'd love that. So, but Angela, thank you for coming on. We just
Oh, this was so great. Yes, I always enjoy talking with you guys. Thank you so much.
You bet.